Hi guys, Erica Quadros here, and I want to go over a few shrubs today that work really good in a part shade area. So a lot of people end up with shady yards over time when they plant trees that get much bigger than they think, and they start off with sun, then it turns into shade, or maybe you always had shade. But either way, I want to show you a few shrubs that will work well for your shady area. And just one thing I want you to know before we go over these is that I notice that a lot of people think that because a shrub or perennial may be labeled shade, in order for it to stay really full and happy, it's going to want some sort of light. So whether that means morning sun and shade from the hot afternoon sun, or just filtered light through the day, it's going to want something. Anything under complete darkness is never going to be happy, even if it's labeled shade. So that's just something to keep in mind, when you're planning on your spot of what to plant. So let's go over a few plants, and just keep in mind too that we'll do more videos of other great shade-loving shrubs. As things are looking good and great, we'll be choosing different things to talk about. But as for today, we're going to start off here with this beauty. This right over here is called a clethra. Now, they also call it sweet pepper bush. They also call it summer sweet. There's a lot of nicknames, and depending on which region you're from, all plants have different nicknames that you may or may not have heard of. So what's special about this plant is that for a plant, and by the way, we're working with the northeast side of my house right now. So this is an area that's going to get kind of shade in the later part of the day. So it's going to get that morning sun that it kind of requires. So where it is pretty much ideal for it. And basically what it does is it blooms these beautiful long white or pink flowers, depending on the variety. And the flowers are very fragrant. They smell like bubblegum, and they attract butterflies, hummingbirds, bees. So once again, we love pollinators, so we want plants that are going to attract them to our gardens and homes. And there's actually a variety out there called hummingbird, which is more of a dwarf variety. This variety is going to get about 6 feet roughly. I believe it's Anne's Bouquet. And once again, super fragrant flowers, smells great. And actually, it's quite a vigorous plant for a plant that lives in part shade or shade. Because oftentimes plants that like areas like that tend to be slower growing plants, but this is actually a more vigorous plant. So what it likes for soil conditions is moisture to a degree. So make sure if you plant one of these, you want to water it like crazy, especially the first couple weeks. You want to soak it every day. You want to do that with most things in general, but you really don't want this plant to dry out. Once it's established, average soil is totally fine, but you don't want to plant it in a dry area. Now, if you're wondering, hey, I like this plant, but I have a sunnier location. Can I plant it there? The answer is yes, you can, but the key, once again, is the soil. So if you have an area that is really dry, you don't want to plant this plant there because it does like, moisture, or like I said, average soil is okay, but it should be, if it's not a moist area, it should be in an area where you can water it if we're having a drought, if it's really dry, because you're not going to tolerate any sort of dryness, really. But yes, sun to part shade, this plant's going to be super happy. And back to talking about how it is vigorous, because of that, you can cut it back pretty hard early spring, like March, or late fall, like late November. And when I say cut it back hard, so you can take about 2/3 or more off of it and trim it way down. And I know it seems like a lot, but believe it or not, the plant is actually gonna fill out, and it's gonna get sturdier stems, and it's gonna get fuller, and it's gonna bloom better. It's just gonna look more robust, which is kind of what we're going for. So don't be afraid to hack it back. Like I said, once a year, early spring or late fall is fine. Great plant, really easy care. And it's going to give you some nice golden fall color on the foliage, and it is deciduous, so meaning that it's going to lose its leaves come winter, regrow them in spring. So once again, it's an excellent plant. I love it. It's also considered native. There's all these different hybrid varieties which are not native, but there is a straight species that is native to our area. So it's always great to plant native plants if we can. But what a great plant, and we're going to move on to the next. This beauty right over here, this is a mountain laurel. Mountain laurel is also a native shrub to New England, and they're really great shrubs for part shade areas. They're slow growing shrubs, so they're not going to get, super big anytime soon, but their ultimate height is usually somewhere between, 6 to 12 feet. Really, I mean, they can get pretty big over time. There's so many varieties out there now, so they do sell some small dwarf compact varieties that tend to have a smaller, tighter leaf. And so, depending on where you want to put it, mine's in my foundation planting, but I do have enough room for it to get big. And because it is slow growing, I can trim it, however I need to. I don't have to worry about it growing 2 feet a year and battling it all the time. So, it is a great shrub. It is evergreen, so it is going to hold its foliage in the winter. It's not going to look so happy in the winter, but it will hold its leaves. So, if you're looking for something that's not going to just be sticks, this is a nice choice to incorporate with some deciduous shrubs, so that you have something to look at in the winter. And in New England, it seems like it's colder for longer than it should be. So this is something that's definitely nice to put in your foundation planting. Like I said, if you have the room for a large variety, but if you don't, a small variety is great, or anywhere in your yard that's part shade. They bloom beautiful flowers, and they, start early summer. This variety is Pink Charm, so, she's going to get between 6 to 10 feet roughly over time, and she has nice kind of pink edged flowers with a white center. Very beautiful. It's a great plant, and like I said, it is a native, so you'll see this if you hike out in the woods. They're growing under the canopies of trees. Sometimes you'll come across a nice one that's on the edge of a pond or lake, and it's getting a little more sun. It may be a little more robust. Those are the more native ones that usually have like a white flower, sometimes pale pink. But yeah, it's a great hardy shrub. So, minimal to no pruning really is what you need for this one. So back to the fact that we like things that are low maintenance. Remember, there's no such thing as no maintenance. So this is definitely the shrub for you if that's the case and that's your sun exposure. So we're going to move on to another one. This one right over here is a mountain fire Andromeda. They also call these Pieris. Now, mine suffered a little bit of late winter damage. You can see over here there's a bit of a bare area. There's still a little bit of brown on the leaves over here. Not a big deal. I just cut that off. So it has been regrowing. But this overall is actually a very, very hardy shrub. Does great around here. And back to, being, it's a broadleafed evergreen. So similar to that mountain laurel I just showed you when it comes to what it's going to like, just average soil, it's definitely does not want to be planted in a wet area. Broadleaf evergreens, you know, like I mentioned before, they're shallow rooted for the most part, and they get root rot easily. So definitely really good, well drained soil. But you know, when they also don't want to be like completely bone dry either. So once they're established, I would say they're actually really, really easy shrubs. Sometimes getting them in the ground can be a little tricky, especially if you do you're planting more towards the summer. The watering can get a little tricky there. But what's nice about this mountain fire Andromeda is that it's going to get about 6 to 8 feet. And same thing, you know, just like with that mountain laurel, they're slow growing, so little to no pruning is needed. And once again, I have the space for it to get big, so that's quite all right. But if you don't, they make other varieties that are more dwarf and compact. So what's nice about this particular variety, some other varieties do the same thing, is that they have this really nice red, fiery red new growth on the foliage. And it's eye-catching too from a distance. But it's past flowered now, but earlier in spring, it's one of the first shrubs to bloom around the same time as, you know, forsythia. They have beautiful long droopy white flowers that come out, and they're gorgeous. They really are. And now you can see some of the spent flowers. You can kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about when I say long. They're kind of long. They come out like that, and they're very pretty. But once again, even when they're done blooming, you have that nice green bush with a nice fiery red new growth. And you know, once again, it's evergreen, so it's gonna give you something to look at in the winter. It's not just gonna be sticks. So as I said too before, it's always great to incorporate evergreens mixed in with deciduous shrubs, just because you don't want all sticks in the winter, but you also may not want all just greenery in the winter either. So broadleaf evergreens, a lot of them bloom, so you kind of get the best of both worlds. Not all of them, but rhododendrons, Andromeda, mountain laurel, you know, they all bloom, and then you get the evergreen aspect out of them too. So they're great for that. So that's it for today. I'll see you next time. Catch me on my next video, and just remember, you can do it, anyone can do it, and I'm here to help. Have a great day, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.